It has been years since Inazuma, but ever since this nation released, I have always had issues with a single character. A character that broke records for sales and is to this day one of the most popular characters in the game. A character that represents a beloved and endearing individual that we all know and love. A character that has spawned one of the most iconic memes in Genshin Impact. None other than Her Excellency, the almighty Narukami Ogosho, God of Thunder, Raiden Ei. Now before I get into this, I want to start off with the positives. Raiden Ei is very pretty. Her abilities are well designed and she commands my personal favorite element. So this is personal for me. When I saw her teased, my jaw hit the floor. But that is where the positives meet an abrupt end. Because when she was released, I was isekai'd by a truck called reality. And it sent me to a world of hatred. Because this character is a lazy, weak, scamming, antagonistic failure that people are still convinced is a good person. And I will be proving all of this without a shadow of a doubt. In this video, I am going to destroy your image of this character in a lore, moral, and in-game standpoint. Because this is the biggest fraud in Genshin Impact revealed. It's been a long time coming, and oh boy, where do we begin? First of all, let's start with the story. The entire Inazuma story is about stopping the Vision Hunt Decree. A decree that Raiden herself signed off on. That I don't think people realize was as bad as it was. Because Raiden was entirely ignorant of the effects it would have on a person's psyche. In fact, she probably still doesn't fully grasp what she did to this day. Because it was Ayaka that told us about the effects. But that's besides the point. Not only did confiscating people's visions result in people losing their hopes and dreams, but it also resulted in countless deaths. Because even though Kazuha's friend is a highlighted victim of this tyranny, let's not forget that this decree started a year-long civil war. A war that we don't know the casualty numbers on, because we don't know how many battles Watatsumi fought against the shogunate. But we do know that families were torn apart because of this war, namely the Iwakura clan, that ended up so broken that they throw themselves at the traveler aiming to die an honorable death in battle. And this is just one example. All this worthless bloodshed and emotional trauma that will never heal. Why? Because Raiden Ei signed off on the Vision Hunt Decree. But it gets worse, because the Vision Hunt Decree was a plot set up by the Fatui so that they could sell delusions to people. So yeah, Raiden is also why Teppei died. But I guess you're wondering, how did Raiden let this happen? I'm so glad you asked. Because you see, Raiden isn't necessarily Ei. The Raiden Shogun is a puppet created by Ei so that she could reach her goal of attaining eternity, placing her consciousness inside of her blade and storing it inside of the puppet's chest, where she meditates to preserve her mind. But there are so many flaws in this plan, I don't even know where to start. First of all, her puppet body is not immune to erosion. Let's not get that twisted. It is only erosion resistant, meaning that she isn't eternal at all in the first place. But at least her mind is immune to erosion as she meditates, right?
Nope.
Well, not anymore because she stopped doing that. So she basically accomplishes nothing. That aside, she programmed the Shogun to run the nation as she meditated. So she outsourced the duty of running a nation to a robot, then was flabbergasted when it went wrong.
But no, though, she's depressed about the death of her sister.
If she was that upset, then why did she not only side with Celestia, but also wants to get even closer to the heavenly principles? That aside, she also programmed it not to have emotions because the first model was deemed a failure for simply having emotions. but we'll get to him later. So the Raiden Shogun puppet has been running Inazuma for the past 500 years or so, and Raiden claims to be aware of everything that goes on that her puppet does, and the state of Inazuma.
If so, then you underestimate me. I am quite well informed about the Vision Hunt decree. Not so. Only everything that pertains to eternity.
Psych! She has no clue about what goes on outside of her little brain palace. That means that she left her nation in the hands of a puppet for around 400 years. But besides the public executions, this is a huge problem. Why? Simply because she has no clue that the Vision Hunt decree was destroying her nation. She was so oblivious to the state of Inazuma that she didn't even know what a camera was.
Take a photo? Once again, I'm faced with a combination of words that makes absolutely no sense to me.
Also, she's such a self-centered narcissist that she also thought that her nation would remain eternal if she sealed herself in her own mind and did nothing.
Mine is the most supreme and noble form. Let power over the realm be vested within me. In this form shall I honor my subjects' dream, for a land of eternity, unchanging forevermore.
That is the equivalent of a child thinking he's hidden in a game of hide and seek because he went into a corner and closed his eyes. Like, no, the world isn't just you, Ei. You wanna know something else that's really messed up? The Raiden Shogun puppet has her own consciousness. So every time we see Ei, she is suppressing the consciousness of the true owner of her body.
But I am an assistant to the one within. If she wishes to rest, I must follow her will. I do as she wishes. I can say no more than this. In my current state, even if I went out, I could do nothing. I am also incapable of it.
What do you mean by that?
It has been forbidden. Please refrain from making me talk any further.
This is some get out sunken state type stuff. Because when you think of it that way, you realize that Raiden's entire character quest is simply about her taking 500 years to beat the Shogun's consciousness into submission for simply wanting to own her own body. Yes, Ei made herself a parasite and now infests her own creation.
You what?
A creation that she doesn't even know how to program.
No. She was not created to ever be turned off. Furthermore, I had even predicted at the time that I may wish to modify the Shogun's operational rules at some point in the future. However, such changes would not be conducive to eternity. That's why the Shogun has a robust system to safeguard against modification.
Let that sink in. So not only did she start a civil war by stealing the manifestations of people's hopes and dreams, but she also made a body for herself that doesn't even achieve her intended purpose of eternity. And for some morbid reason has its own soul that she actively beats into submission. I don't like this character. She also never apologized for the Vision Hunt decree. She just told people that they're allowed to take their visions from the statue. She didn't even give them back. I don't like this character. And it's not because haha funny Ei can't cook, it's because that is her character in a nutshell. She refuses to learn or progress or develop. To this day, she still doesn't run her nation. Ayato does. Don't believe me? Well, it just so happens that Ayato has the Tri-Commission under his thumb. Ever notice that no one with connections to the Kamisato clan ever got their visions taken? There's a reason why Kamisato means God's village, okay? But that's besides the point. Ei to this day still stays in Tenshukaku reading novels and eating snacks all day. She is so immature that she says that cavities are no big deal because she can replace her teeth. See what I mean by refusing to develop? It would be funny if she didn't constantly fail at everything she does. Which brings me to her entirely overrated combat skills. Because for some reason, people think that Raiden is one of the strongest Archons. She's not even close! Let me explain. So let's go over her feats first, right? She has the Musono Hitotachi, the unblockable, unbeatable attack that got parried by a human, and she's also got this ludicrous slash that killed Urabashi. Now, some say it reached this far, and some say it reaches this far, with the former being cool and the latter being... why? That definitely caused some civilian casualties. She split a mountain in half. But even this is not that impressive compared to other Archons. Because Zhongli throws mountains the size of some Inazuma islands, Egeria the Hydro Archon, the predecessor of Focalors, created the entire population of Fontaine. Mawika, even without the majority of her power, punched a hole into the spirit realm with her disjointed consciousness. And Rukkhadevata created the entire forest of Sumeru. And Venti? He terraformed his entire nation and created Golden Apple Archipelago by cutting apart mountains and throwing them into the ocean. And I don't know about you, but creation is far more impressive than destruction. But let's talk about the Musono Hitotachi. The profoundest of the profound is the Musono Hitotachi, a sword art without parallel in all the world. She says this about herself, by the way. I told you she was a narcissist. But the funny part is that it got parried by a human. Then you realize that the only time she used the Musono Hitotachi was on weakened or dying opponents. Urabashi was already cursed by Celestia for reading before Sun and Moon. Kazuha's friend's sword was already broken, so he was defenseless. Signora was so weak she wasn't even in her Crimson Witch form anymore. And beating the Traveler? That's not a feat if we couldn't even win a 1v1 versus Scaramouche after 168 tries. And what if I told you that she lost a duel to a human? You wouldn't believe me, would you? Oh, then I'll let her tell you.
Anyone who can beat me in a duel becomes the new commissioner. The first Tenryou commissioner demonstrated his will with the blade in his hand. That is why the title has been passed down within the Kujo clan ever since.
This means that the first Tenryou commissioner defeated her in a duel, and they have always been humans. Kujo Sara is adopted. So yes, Ei not only farms kills by preying on the weak to call her technique the profoundest of the profound, but she also isn't even that skilled when she is faced with someone with actual talent. So when she faces a skilled swordsman that she can't just overpower with Electro, the Kazuha incident happens. She gets exposed for the fraud that she is. And I would let all of this slide if she had a shred of empathy for anyone but herself. Because now we gotta talk about her first puppet, Scaramouche. This poor guy, she created him only to abandon him when he didn't suit her specific purpose. Also, if he was supposed to be the Shogun, why did she create a male puppet for herself? It just makes no sense. Just like how Ei was Makoto's shadow, he was supposed to be her shadow, doing the dirty work on her behalf. It breaks my heart that he still refers to her as his mother after all that.
The first to betray me was a god. My creator. My mother. Valuing strength above all, she saw no worth in me and I was discarded.
But at least Nahida fixed this issue since he now is serving as Nahida's shadow. This wouldn't be the first time Nahida covered for her either. I swear, Nahida saved Raiden in lore and in-game because Electro would be nothing without Dendro. Also, there is this one little Easter egg commission quest named O Archon Have I Done Right? With a kid named Shota, and he prays to a shrine and gets his prayers answered. And in the third part of this quest, the offerings get destroyed and he wishes that his exam gets canceled. And this little girl he says is from his class showed up and bullied him, telling him to study, but he couldn't remember her name. She later shows up and he says, "Oh, she's back," and runs away, only for the camera to pan around and no one is there. And in the last moments of this quest, this woman notes that there are some leaves on the ground. I wonder who this little girl was. Some say it was Raiden, which it wasn't. There's no way he thought she was in his class. Some say it was Abake Danuki, and no, they can't talk, let alone bully someone. Besides this one, but he ain't moving. Leaving this to be the only little girl that can make people forget about her presence and can also turn invisible for people she doesn't want to see her. Nahida. And yes, this was before we saved her from the academia. She was just projecting her consciousness that far. And we know she can do this because she spoke to us in Golden Apple Archipelago, a place that identifies as Mondstadt. So Nahida apparently cares more about the education of Inazuma's children than Raiden does. Go figure. Raiden gets ratioed in her own nation by another Archon. But I would forgive all of this if she wasn't a scammer. Because for some reason, when you pull for her, you don't get Raiden Ei. You get Raiden Shogun. You get the puppet. Ei shows up in a teapot, but you play as the puppet. And the game shows you this because Ei has her own voice lines for combat.
Muga no kyochi. Muga no kyochi.
I have no words. How do you defend this? Even if you love Raiden, I know this ticks you off. Because Raiden managed to hurt you and scam you in real life. We knew we got Farina and not Focalor. We knew we got Nahida and not Rukkhadevata. But Raiden fans actually thought they were getting Ei, and they didn't really get her. Not me, I didn't get her. Why would I get her when I have EM Raiden that heals and actually uses a sword? It's funny because the Raiden at home is actually better. She is the only Archon to get power crept by a 4-star. In conclusion, I don't like this character, and for good reason. I rag on her so often in my shorts because there is so much wrong with her. She was the problem of Inazuma. It's not slander if it's true. I know I just ticked off a lot of Raiden fans with this video, but don't get mad at me for telling you the truth. I wanted to like her. It didn't have to be like this, but here we are. And with that said, I will continue to bash this character for all eternity. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.